Brett Kavanaugh, who is Trump's second, if you can believe it, nominee for the Supreme Court. Question that Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed, and he knows it. That's why if you watch any of the hearings, you see the constant smirking and the constant evading of questions that are put to him in detail and roughly in detail, in a rough manner, by the Democrats. Well, the Republicans just continue to stroke him and pet him and tell him what a good man he is. I'll tell you what, I read something today in the New York Times, editorial, or an op-ed, I should say, about the uselessness now of the Supreme Court. It ought to be just fucking abolished. It has become nothing more than a political sewer where everything that the Congress doesn't want to legislate winds up in front of these 9 justices, which is not exactly the way the framers had it all in mind. But anyway, in today's testimony, I don't know if you saw it or not. If you did, you may want to go do something else, because I am going to talk about this for a while. Also going to talk about Colin Kaepernick, too, and Nike's decision to feature him in there. So I'll get to that in a little bit. Anyway, Patrick Leahy, the Democrat of Vermont, brought up 2 scandals from George W. Bush's stupid presidency. And let me just add parenthetically, I thought nobody could be stupider than Bush when it came to being president of the United States. Dumber, ignorant, more ignorant. And then along comes Trump. But I digress. Leahy brought up a couple of these Bush-era scandals with Kavanaugh. And he suggested that the emails, the Bush White House emails, method of operating, and the shit that he did while he worked for Bush, all of that stuff is in the emails in the hands of the Judiciary Committee's Republican managers, and they will not release them. They will not release them. And one of the reasons they won't release them, in my humble opinion, is because the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee have read those, and they realize that those emails contain contradictory testimony that contradicts what this smarmy son of a bitch who is going to be the next Supreme Court justice made more than a decade ago. That's one of the reasons that Chuck Grassley and the rest of these Republican swine on this committee will not release these. These people have really pushed it beyond the point which we're never going to go back. First of all, Mitch McConnell, in not allowing a Senate hearing on Obama's nomination to be on the Supreme Court, holding that seat open for a year. And then these filthy bastards, these Republicans, all of them together, every single one of them. And don't tell me about Ben Sass, that he's the voice of New Republicans. Horse shit. He's another typical worm, just like the rest of them. Oh, he sounds good. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Looks good. Oh, absolutely. But he's a Republican. And that means he's a lying son of a bitch, no matter what he says. So where was I? Oh, yeah. The reason the Senate won't release these emails is because they know what's in them. They know that there is testimony in those emails that make Kaepernick look like, make Brett Kavanaugh look like the liar and the duplicitous liar that he really is. So they're just not going to do it. They don't hold a hearing for Obama's nominee for the Supreme Court for a year. And I mean, you tell me if our system's not fucked up when one ugly son of a bitch, Mitch McConnell, one turtle-looking ugly son of a bitch, can hold up the entire Supreme Court confirmation process until such time as the election for the next president can be rigged by Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's allies in the Kremlin to make sure that Donald Trump, this useless bastard, gets elected. I mean, don't think that all this just happens gratuitously. Don't think that none of this is not carefully thought out. These fuckers knew what was going on. I just wish that Mueller's investigation would go beyond Trump, where it concerns money from these dictators in the Kremlin, and release the names of the American senators, past, present, and future, who have received money from the Russians. You have to understand something, and this is finally sunk into my thick head. The Russians, for whatever the reasons, some of the reasons are justifiable, the Russians want to see this country fucking fold and collapse. They want to see just about every Western democracy fold and collapse. And they're trying to do it on the cheap, so to speak, you know, with no bombed out buildings or 50 million dead or people gasping to breathe from gas attacks, which the Russians support in Syria. They're trying to do it on the cheap. But their objective is exactly the same. The destruction of Western democracies once and fucking for all. Forever. That's it. The end of it. And as far as contributions to these right-wing Nazi senators who all of a sudden have popped up out of the slime, well, of course it comes from the Kremlin. What, are we supposed to believe it doesn't? And the National Rifle Association, which is a wholly owned subsidiary now of Vladimir Putin and the Russians, oh, you don't believe that? Then you're a fucking moron if you don't believe it. You really, really are. If the NRA was able to spend $100 million, that's what we know about, $100 million to get this orange orangutan elected in 2016. Do you suppose that the NRA got all that money from their little $30 and $40 contributions from these brain-dead fucking yahoos who like to wander around in camo with their guns and talk about, we're going to take back the country from the niggers. That's what we're going to do. The niggers and the Jews, we're going to take it back. Do you think, for one moment, that the NRA has devolved into anything other than a fascistic organization that gets its financing and therefore its directives from Putin-related Russian mafia? Come on, you're old enough, you're experienced enough to understand this shit now. Let's get our heads out of our collective asses about America the free and the brave and the hopeful and home of this and home and that. Let's just cut the shit. This is a struggle for survival. You're either in or you're out. If you're out, fuck you. That's my opinion. If you are out, if you are not willing to really struggle against this tide of fascism, then what the fuck are you doing here? What are you doing? What? I mean, what? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.